to our deep dive in understanding what the coronavirus is, how it works, why it's led to a pandemic, and most importantly, how we can learn to protect ourselves both now and in future pandemics. Last episode, we learned that our immune system is composed of two interrelated parts. Our innate immunity launches rapid defenses against general threats, while our adaptive immunity launches defenses against specific threats after a delay. Now that we have a basic understanding of how our body defends itself, let's take a look at the story of the virus that caused a pandemic. Let's rewind to about a year and some change ago, when people were first internationally affected by COVID-19. One day, it was life as usual, then seemingly out of nowhere, we were in the middle of a pandemic and toilet paper shortage caused by an infectious virus called SARS-CoV-2. We were forced to adapt to a new way of life. We quarantined, wore masks when leaving the confines of our homes, and basically lived in isolation until further notice. But during all of this, you must have wondered too, where did this virus come from? First of all, we should understand that coronaviruses are a large family consisting of hundreds of viruses that circulate among animals like pigs, camels, and bats. Fortunately, most of these coronaviruses usually cause mild to moderate upper respiratory tract illnesses or infections of your nose and throat, such as the common cold. However, there are 7 known coronaviruses that can infect humans. While 4 of them only cause mild to moderate disease, the other 3 can cause serious, even fatal illness. Those 3 coronaviruses cause the diseases known as SARS, MERS, and COVID-19. SARS and MERS both led to serious and rapid infections across multiple continents. COVID-19 has led to a full-blown pandemic, which is a rapid infectious spread that impacts our entire global community. But if coronaviruses are usually circulating in animals like pigs, camels, and bats, how did they get from them to us? Coronaviruses can spread when a spillover event occurs, which is when a virus that inhabits one species jumps to another species and becomes infectious. There's a number of reasons why spillovers can happen. As we learned in episode 3, viruses can evolve. Sometimes they undergo mutations that allow them to jump species and become infectious. A virus's ability to jump a species can also be improved when it's able to use a protein that's found on the cells of more than one species to gain entry. But most importantly, for a virus to make this jump, it needs a way to meet a new host, which can often happen when we disturb wildlife and accidentally expose ourselves to new viruses. So, if the current coronavirus causing COVID-19 jumped from an animal species to humans, which animal species did it come from? It turns out that those 3 deadly strains of coronaviruses mentioned earlier are likely originated from bats. But hold up, bats are not evil virus-filled monsters that are out to get us. They just happen to be great at carrying a lot of viruses, and there's several reasons for why that is. 1, bats fly, which means that they travel farther to more places and thus come into contact with more pathogens. 2, bats live a very long time, and more time means more opportunities to pick up more pathogens. 3, bats gather and live in large groups, so they can easily spread viruses to other bats. Most importantly, the evolutionary process that gave bats the ability to fly also changed their body in many other ways. In particular, bats are able to adjust their immune system responses to suppress viral replication and severe inflammation. As a result, they can harbor way more viruses in their body without experiencing illness the way we do. But if you're thinking that we should just get rid of all the bats on Earth, that will actually throw our planet into chaos because we rely on bats to pollinate flowers and eat disease-causing insects. If we vanquish them all, our ecosystems would likely fall apart. The best thing we can do is to leave them be. Now that we've learned how SARS-CoV-2 jumped to humans, let's investigate how this virus is passed from person to person. There are 2 major ways that this virus is transmitted, through contact and droplets. Contact can mean direct contact, such as when you shake hands with someone who is infectious that physically passes the virus to you. Transmission can also happen through indirect contact, when we touch contaminated objects or surfaces. Another form of transmission is through respiratory droplets, which are tiny balls of saliva and moisture that get expelled from our mouth and nose when we sneeze, cough, breathe, or talk. If a person is infected, they can produce respiratory droplets that carry the COVID-19 virus, which can infect someone else if those droplets make contact. Respiratory droplets that are very small can sometimes dry up in the air, allowing the virus to float along for a while and find an unsuspecting new host. This form of transmission is called airborne transmission, and fortunately, it's less of an issue if we avoid hanging around in places with poor ventilation, where viruses can accumulate in the environment. SARS-CoV-2 is mainly transmitted through close contact. Now, let's discuss the structure and biology of SARS-CoV-2, which we'll abbreviate to CoV-2. This virus is an enveloped, single-stranded RNA virus. You may remember that viruses are unlike cells in that they have single or double-stranded DNA or RNA. Like many other RNA viruses, CoV-2 enters a cell by binding one of its spike proteins to a protein receptor on the host cell. The viral spike protein fits into the receptor like a key in a lock, allowing the virus to trick its way inside. The viral spike protein of CoV-2 binds specifically to a receptor protein called ACE2, which is an important enzyme that helps regulate our blood pressure. We should note that all mammals have ACE2. Because ACE2's role is essential to the body, it hasn't changed much over time, so its amino acid sequence and resulting shape have remained fairly similar among all mammals. This means that the bat version of ACE2 closely resembles the human version of ACE2, which helps explain why CoV-2 was able to jump from bats to us. It's also important to note that ACE2 is present in various cells throughout your body. CoV-2 generally enters our body through the lungs. Once it travels there after entering via our nose or mouth, it can first infect the cells that line the lungs because these cells express ACE2. If the infection spreads, CoV-2 can travel to other locations in the body and infect other cells that also express ACE2. After CoV-2 binds to ACE2 on a cell's surface, it tricks the cell into engulfing the virus by endocytosis. Once inside, CoV-2 releases its viral RNA and begins to replicate. Its replication involves two processes, making copies of its genome and making viral protein. When discussing how CoV-2 makes copies of its genome, we must remember that CoV-2's RNA genome is different from the DNA genome of our cells. Our cells don't make RNA from RNA, so CoV-2 must bring along a special enzyme called RDRP to replicate its genome. Once CoV-2's genome has been copied and new viral proteins have been produced, the RNA and proteins are packaged into new viruses, which are released from the cell and travel to infect other cells. How does CoV-2 affect your body after it enters? To understand that, let's start off with a bit of lung anatomy. Pretend you're an oxygen molecule. You're inhaled through the nose or mouth, down the throat, into the trachea or windpipe, and down into minuscule tubes called bronchioles that branch out into tiny air sacs called alveoli. The alveoli are clustered together at the end of the bronchioles, kind of like clusters of grapes. These many alveoli together make up the lung. Inside the alveoli, special cells called type 2 pneumocytes make a natural lubricant called surfactant, which prevents the alveoli from sticking together and collapsing. The alveoli are surrounded by capillaries, which are the tiniest blood vessels present in your whole body. After you enter an alveolus, you're able to squeeze through its one-cell thick wall, composed of type 1 pneumocytes, towards the capillary wall, which is just as thin. Once you're in a capillary, a red blood cell will pick you up, and at the same time, carbon dioxide molecules are being dropped off and exhaled out of the body via the same way you came through. This whole process is called gas exchange, meaning the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide as you breathe. CoV-2 can enter your alveoli similar to inhaled oxygen molecules, but it's a foreign invader that isn't supposed to enter the body. It travels down from the throat and trachea into the alveoli, where it attaches and attacks your type 2 pneumocytes, turning them into viral factories. Those infected cells send out chemical distress calls for help, and macrophages come to the rescue and release chemicals of their own, calling for backup and activating inflammation. Although the immune system is trying to eliminate the viral threats, fluids from the dilated blood vessels leak out and build up around and inside the infected alveoli. The alveoli become compressed by the fluids, making it harder for them to expand as oxygen is brought in. The fluid also dilutes the surfactant, kind of like the ice melting in your beverage, and giving it a more watered-down taste. Since the surfactant is now diluted, it can't properly do its job of preventing the alveoli from collapsing anymore. Remember the neutrophils from last episode? When they arrive on scene, they'll release chemicals to kill the virus, but this also causes collateral damage that kills your lung cells as well. As a result, the alveoli become clogged up by the dead cells and fluid. This blockade fluid and pressure all make it difficult to breathe and for gas exchange to occur. While all of that is happening within the lungs, how does the rest of the body react? Due to the inability of proper lung functionality, there's less oxygen available to circulate around your body. Therefore, your heart will attempt to pump blood faster in order to try and catch up to your body's needs, but there just isn't enough oxygen to go around. Fever may also arise as the damaged cell's cries for help reach the brain, causing it to reset the body's built-in thermostat to a higher temperature in an attempt to fight viral spread. However, if the inflammation spreads throughout your system, your blood vessels will dilate and become leaky, allowing fluids to exit into your tissues, lowering your blood pressure. This means there will be less fluid circulating in your blood vessels, which makes it even harder to deliver nutrients and oxygen and remove waste from your body cells. If this persists, it could ultimately lead to multi-organ failure and consequently death. Finally, your body may also lose its ability to smell or taste due to the cells in the nasal passages being inflamed and malfunctioning. Ultimately, the majority of the damage caused by COVID-19 is actually a result of your body's defenses going into overdrive trying to defend you. So, what's the takeaway from today's episode? 1. The virus causing the current pandemic was transmitted from bats to humans. 2. SARS-CoV-2 is an RNA virus that infects cells by attaching to the protein receptor ACE2, which is found on many of our body cells and shared by all mammals. 3. Most of the damage caused by COVID-19 is due to our body's defenses going into overdrive. 4. Bats can crank up their immune response to fight viral spread while dialing down inflammation so they don't experience infection the way we do. Stay tuned next time to find out how vaccines play a part in immunity.